I don't know. I don't really think about swords that way.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold the weapon! Now! Charge the lightning field.
Welcome back to Dispatch Ajax. I am Jake.
Hey, I'm Skip.
That is Skip. Today, it is again cartoon rewind.
What up?
Yes. Let us travel back to the magical year of 1988. For that was the year when Central Organization of Police Specialists began, otherwise known as C.O.P.S.
Oh, I think I know what you're doing. Okay.
So this was an animated show that came out for a year.
Mm-hmm. Like all the good ones.
Yeah. Then it was rerun 5 years later. And then again, 2 years after that, but they kept having to change the titles because originally it came out as Cops, but then this other show, I don't know if anybody's heard of it. It was this reality show where they had a cameraman following police officers in the fields.
Harassing brown and black people.
Yeah, just about anybody they could get their hands on. And that was also called Cops. So they figured, maybe we should change the title. So it became Cyber Cops.
Which is funny because they're actually anthropomorphic dogs. It was really weird.
Some of them were cyborg. So your main character is a cyborg. The main character is Baldwin P. Vess, otherwise known as Bulletproof.
His family owns the vast soda empire.
Yeah.
He and Montesquieu Shasta are the two biggest in the field.
God damn you, Montesquieu!
They have a blood feud for sure.
Well, and Shasta lives on Mount Shasta.
It does, actually, yeah. That's actually where
he got his formula from a secret moon base vent.
Man, I was going to say something about that, too. It was like, that's what... It's like the Keebler elves, but they're inside a mountain, and they're, of course, used to slave labor. So.
Little alien elves, they make the best sodas.
With the grays and the tall people and the whites.
Don't forget the insectoids. Maybe the creepiest of them all. It's insectoids and reptiloids are like, ugh.
Yeah, but they're in the center of the earth, though.
Yeah, but they pop out. It's like those stories when they're melting through walls and raping people. Those are messed up.
Oh. I imagine they're all just kind of like Reptile in Mortal Kombat. They all just pop up as secret characters and then take off their faces and then... It's kind of like in Last Starfighter,
Isn't everything, though?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so Bulletproof was your main character, and he was...
Shot in the line of duty.
Actually... So he's a federal agent from the FBI, and he was sent to Empire City. Empire City is where this all happens in the year 2020.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, it's in the far future. That was a couple years ago.
COVID protocols in place?
Did you say the protocols?
The COVID protocols.
Oh, the COVID protocols.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the protocols are still around in 2020, yes.
But he got called in to dispatch Big Boss, which was a character that if you mixed Kingpin from Marvel with James Cagney.
Yeah, sure. It's like a Dick Tracy character or a
100%.
Mr. X from Streets of Rage, yeah.
Well, the bad guys were all like Dick Tracy-esque characters. The good guys, well, that's another thing. I guess the cop's the protagonist here, which is a weird thing because when you think about cops in cartoons, it's hard to find quote-unquote good guys.
Yeah. You mean as them as the protagonists?
Well, I mean, actually just kind of like good at all.
Oh,
I mean, think about it. Off the top of your head, what are animated cop characters you can think of?
Jim Gordon.
Jim Gordon, yes, he's the one. But when you take the cops as that, Bullock is trying to get the Batman.
Yeah, he's kind of corrupt, yeah.
Even if he's meant to do what he's trying to do of like stop vigilantism, which any police officer theoretically should, it's still kind of an antagonist to Batman. What's another art cartoon character you can think of?
What's the one from McDonald Land? Not Mayor McCheese, but the other one that's dressed like a cop that looks like Mayor McCheese.
Well, I mean, that's not exactly a cartoon, but...
Well, it had a cartoon, I'm just saying. I don't know.
Let me type McDonald's cop. I wonder what shows up with that. Officer Big Mac.
Officer, that's really his name?
That's his name, yep.
Okay. Brave Star.
Yes, Brave Star is one of the ones that, quote-unquote, all around good as a protagonist. Let me just... Ones that kind of popped in my head and I was thinking of. Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons.
He's a slapsticky one, but he's kind of an antagonist.
Exactly. Inspector Gadget doesn't really count.
No, he's a secret
he's
agent.
doing his own thing. Officer Barbrady from South Park. He's an antagonist. Earl from Futurama, antagonist. Officer Dibble from Top Cat, antagonist. Quick Draw McGraw, I mean, that's more of like a sheriff in old-timey West.
Yeah.
You know.
That's different.
A little different.
They're basically vigilantes.
Yeah. Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther, antagonist.
Yeah. Really? I just thought he was the
You
protagonist.
think he's the protagonist?
I haven't seen those movies in forever, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, I always felt like we were supposed to identify with Pink Panther, not Clouseau.
Well, I thought it was a cat and mouse, but I thought you were supposed to sympathize with Clouseau. The dynamic is set up where, cat and mouse, where you're rooting for the, the villain or whatever, but he's kind of an asshole, and the other one's just kind of an idiot. I don't know. I was rooted for Clouseau because, he's kind of like a Mr. Magoo. Oh, buddy, you're going to walk off that cliff. Don't do it.
But I thought we always kind of wanted him to fail. You know what I mean?
I guess in catching him, yes, but in pursuit, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but I mean, we start scraping the bottom of the barrel there. There just really aren't that many cops as protagonists in cartoons, especially when you have a plethora of different cops as your protagonist. It's just a weird thing I picked up as I was thinking about cops in animated features.
I think that goes into a whole overarching sort of dichotomy that the American psyche has, because we always identify as the outlaw and the anti-hero, and yet we're supposed to root for cops in TV shows because we were supposed to root for Law and Order, and including Law and Order, and especially Cop Rock. But
most certainly Cop Rock.
Yeah, well, bigger is better underneath the sweater. I'm telling you that right now.
Your brain is infested with sickness.
It is syphilitic like Al Capone.
Is that Hal Capone, the future gangster?
Yes, he's a robot bootlegger, also has syphilis. Or the legacy virus. It's kind of the same thing.
Scarface. I can't do that.
The Untouchables is a good example, too. We're not supposed to root for Capone, and rightfully so. He was a piece of shit. But for some reason, we root for Bonnie and Clyde, even though they were horrible people. Of course, granted, they had horrible lives, and their backstories were terrible. Abuse and sexual assault and rape and all sorts of stuff on those kids.
No, I think there's an element there, but I think you're also, if you take the totality of police, especially on television, I would say the majority are protagonists that are meant to be rooted for.
Yes,
Beverly
totally.
Hills Street Cop, Andy Griffith.
Did you say Beverly Hills Street Cop?
Yes. Well, Hill Street Blues, that's what I meant to say.
Beverly Hills Street Blues, yes.
Yes, Beverly Hills Street Blues Cop. It's and a half. Academy. But I think that, there is an underlying element, especially of your Wild West revolt against authority. But I think there's also, in the totality of police stories, generally the police are your protagonists that are meant to be the good ones, that are keeping law and order, that are protecting everyone.
Yeah, the status quo.
Yes, very much the status quo.
The white homogenous, Protestant culture. Even the ones that are antagonists, or protagonists, I mean, we always still root for the one that breaks the rules, the one who doesn't follow follow the book or whatever, the one who takes justice into his own hands. We don't root for Elliot Ness.
No, we're very much Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry.
Right, exactly, yeah. By being an anti-hero, he's the antagonist protagonist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he feels the need to bend the rules, instill law and order.
It's that stupid American mentality, which I don't understand because we're supposed to root for the law and for the normalcy, but at the same time, we're like, oh, that crusty old dean, I just don't... Well, it's a bizarre mentality.
If we're supposed to get conspiratorial, the idea that cops do no wrong, and even when they break the law, they're still doing the right thing, then that puts them above the law in every way, shape, and form. So we should never question what they do, look into it.
That's a good point. Like the ones that buck the system and do the right thing, even if it goes against the rules. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, I think that's astute. Yeah, and that's even more dangerous because it's more subtle than just like Nazi propaganda, but it's kind of the same effect. We're always on the side of good. And even when they break the rules of society, they're doing the Lord's work, killing those who need killing, that whole thing, which is a dangerous, dangerous thing to root for.
This is true. If this had been a different series, maybe they might have gotten into some of that.
But it was a cartoon.
This was a lackluster, might be a little harsh, but a pretty milquetoast cartoon about cops in the near future who are there to protect Empire City against the big boss.
The Bruce Lee movie.
Yes. Yeah, they got to watch out for him. This was based off Hasbro's 1988 action figure line called Cops in Crooks. That's an N by itself, not an IN.
Oh, so like Captain Crunch.
Yes, Captain Crunch.
Cops in Crooks. I'm more willing to watch that one. Actually, no, I'm not. No, not in any. No.
You're under arrest, bad boy.
Slap the cuffs on him. We're going to have to pat you down. Strip search.
Is that a drill bit I feel in your pocket?
Why would it be a drill bit?
Bend over and I'll show you.
Was it drill bit Taylor?
No, it is not that.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It sounded kind of like George Lucas doing Owen Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. The stories, they rhyme.
It's like poetry, Obi-Wan. But Cops and Crooks were figures that were designed by Bart Sears, who you might know if you're into comic books.
Oh, yeah. Did a lot of Justice League stuff back in the day, like Justice League Europe.
Yes, Justice League Uranus.
That would be more interesting than Justice League Europe.
Just about anything's more interesting than Justice League Europe.
Except for Justice League Detroit.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes. And maybe Justice League International, which is even a little more...
Which I think is just... That was the evolution of Justice League Europe, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then there was Justice League Task Force. We're extreme.
Yep.
Remember that?
We drink all the Mountain Dew and Doritos as we fight super crime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as Bart Sears recounted, the idea for Cops, he can't quite remember where it came from.
Good story.
But he believes it was from an outside source. It was attributed to some toy design firm, but the original concept drawings that Hasbro bought were all badly done steel, slightly altered off Marvel Comics stuff.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Like G.I. Joe.
Yeah, relaying the up and up. At the time, he had been working on G.I. Joe vehicles, doing a bunch of WWF wrestling figures and Batman tracings.
I buy that.
When he came up with the concepts for these characters, at least the figures, because then they made the figures and then they made cartoons that are kind of loosely based off the figures. It's kind of weird because they're not really exact. The figures don't all look like the cartoon does. But, so it goes.
C'est la vie.
He said the line was canceled after the second year. And a funny story was, so the marketing guys behind Hasbro decided to put all of their money behind this new series called Air Raiders. And then they overproduced tons of those toys, expecting to be a huge hit. At the same time, they ramped down production of Cops after the first wave of them came out. Air Raiders flopped massively. Nobody bought those. But they had huge reorders for the first series of Cops, but the company that was making all the toys, they'd shut down production of that, and they weren't going to reopen it for like another year or so. By the time they were able to reproduce any things, they'd missed their window, and nobody cared about Cops anymore. So they just shut it all down. The cartoon ended and the toys ended. So it wasn't really like doing poorly. The company just moved in a different direction, and it killed the whole thing. But the basic idea of Cops is that it's in 2020. Things are slightly futuristic. It's very much a Batman series kind of vibe. Retro Art Deco, but with flying cars and some cyborg stuff.
Right. It's the poor man's Blade Runner, where they're trying to do noir, but in the future.
Yes. They leaned in hard to the noir. All of the themes that are done, which was done by the same people who did like He-Man and some of the background music for Batman the Animated Series and G.I. Joe. 20s flute instrument stuff. It very much felt like a mix of 80s cop show meets like 1920s noir, but all set in the neo-future.
And a cartoon.
And a cartoon, yeah. And the cartoon is the opening of the cartoon, which they kind of introduced most of the main characters in the sequence that travels across the city as the cops are trying to catch the bad guys. That's really well done. I think that's really cool. The series, though, it's a little clunky. Sometimes you see them working hard on the designs of things, but not as much the animation execution, which really hinders the whole thing. And the storytelling is pretty flat.
You're telling me that crappy animation ruined an animated show? I don't buy that at all.
I mean, there are worse animated shows that lasted much longer, I will say that.
That's fair.
But the way this was set up is that every episode, it's like, Case File 1192, the case of the big dick loser,
Well, then he's not a loser.
I mean, did you see the guy?
No, I really didn't.
Oh, well, if you had, you'd tell. Total loser.
I'd know.
Yeah. Case 292, the incel from hell.
Well, that's redundant, I think.
No, this guy actually is a demon incel from hell.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He decided to steal some game codes and then post on some female gamers.
And then also he was in the movie Cell. He was in Cell.
Oh, that was him.
Yeah, not The Cell. Cell, the adaptation of that Stephen King book. That makes no sense.
I actually don't know which one you're talking about.
The movie has Samuel L. Jackson and
John Cusack.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever saw this movie.
it would be fine if it weren't for the fact that the concept makes no sense. But that kind of goes with every Stephen King work.
Oh, this was a video-on-demand release in 2016.
Was it really VOD?
Yeah, it went straight VOD.
Oh.
So that's...
Wow.
Did not know a whole lot about that one.
I mean, it's worth a watch once, but then you're like, I'm over it now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm over it already.
I was done with this red book before I saw it.
So you have Bulletproof. So every episode stands on its own. Essentially, it's good guys versus robbers. That's the whole gig. There is no dynamism in characters, really. There isn't an evolving plot line. It's just everyone on its own. There are a couple two-parters, but it doesn't really matter. And Bulletproof, who we're introduced to from the beginning, he's kind of your main character, voiced by Ken Ryan, who really didn't do anything else.
Wait, man, that's the sad part. It's like you drop the mic on your career with that. That's really
It's
sad.
odd. A lot of the people that worked on this cartoon, I was looking up their voice acting credits, and some of them did all different types of stuff. But a lot of them worked on the show The Raccoons, which I never heard of.
Oh,
You know what that is?
yeah, I've seen that. Also, an obscure show that nobody watched.
I haven't seen it. There wasn't a whole lot of big-time voice actors that you recognize from a lot of other things. Some of them popped up in other things, your Sailor Moons or your Batman the Animated Series here and there, but not really anybody really stuck out. But Bulletproof's whole idea was that he was a cop. He was an FBI agent who was sent to Empire City to take down Big Boss. And during the course of trying to take him down, his goons throw him to a brick wall, and he is crushed to near death. Then he wakes up in this hospital room. They're like, well, we could let you heal, and maybe you'll walk in a few years, maybe not. Or you could not let Big Boss win, and we can fit you with a cyborg body.
Oh, it's kind of like in The Boys, kind of.
Yeah, kind of like that. I mean, it has a very much like a RoboCop vibe. He put in this cyborg chassis, his whole upper body.
Like a power loader?
No, it's more like a vest, a cyborg vest.
I invented the portable iron lung.
I mean, kinda, yeah. If it's much more form-fitting.
It lifts and separates.
He doesn't take it off or show it much throughout the series. In fact, you don't even find out he really has that till the 6th episode where you get his origin. Then you get the origin of the rest of the crew, where they're like, all right, you can make me a cyborg, but I need the best team of cops across the nation. The cops get on the computer, and they're typing along, and they start pulling in cops from all around. So you get Rex Bowser Pointer, who's a police officer from Chicago. He loves animals, and he has a robo-dog called Blitz as his canine officer. You have Walker Sundown Calhoun. He's a former Texas sheriff, and he wears a cowboy hat and has a lasso.
Played by Joe Don Baker.
He also has no cyborg stuff. Nothing no. They have an episode where his old partner decides they get these bank robbers, they corral them, and before they turn them in, he's like, oh, wow, you guys made a huge heist. I think I want this money. He just bails with it.
Wow.
He turns rogue.
Whoa, that's exactly like that character in Robot Jocks. Tex?
Yes, just like Tex. But they show 2020 Texas, and it's just reverted again to the Old West.
Of course it has.
Oh, that's kind of fitting. Everyone just has guns, and they're just robbing banks, and it's lawless, and everyone has to wear a cowboy hat.
You're contractually obligated. It's by law.
Kind of fits. You got Susie Mirage Young. She's a female police officer. She works undercover. You have Sergeant Colt Mace Howards from the Philadelphia SWAT team, and he's got a bazooka, which is the laser bazooka?
Why would it be called a Manzooka? Jason Manzookas.
Jason Manzookas?
That's a phrase we should use to describe his swag. Jason Manzookas.
It's kind of like the police academy. All their code names. You got Highway, who's a California highway patrolman, or Barricade from Detroit Metro.
Oof.
All of these from cops, they're from like different parts of the United States, and each one has their form and function that relates to a specific part of law enforcement.
Yeah, there's Unnecessary Force from LA, and then you have Stop and Frisk from New York.
There's a Wayne R. Checkpoint Sneeden who grew up in Alabama. Woof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sundown Town Sneeden.
There's Long Arm. He's another guy who has a pseudo-cyborg thing where he has a wrist device that's like a handcuff thing that goes out and grabs criminals.
No. I mean, yes, it's very obvious, yes.
You got Heavyweight from Fort Leavenworth, who drops an armored technical craft.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not super great, especially when you have your main character, Bulletproof. He's a black man. I was like, oh, okay. When I first opened up, it's like, oh, okay. Your black man is your protagonist. Cool. He's voiced by a white actor. Kind of a miss, but okay. Maybe they'll have more stuff. In the first episode, you're introduced to them, and then there is a gala that's celebrating the police for being super great or whatever.
It's the Super Great Awards. The Soupies.
Super awesome. They go to this tuxedo place, and then the guy who's doing the fittings one, who shuts out, and he's like, you guys forgot this. Here, everyone needs a top hat.
Oh my god, is it Hollywood from Mannequin? Or Bronson Pinchot from Beverly Hills Cop? Is that what we're dealing with?
Yeah, it's very much the effeminate.
Terrible stereotype?
Yeah.
But in a cartoon for kids?
Then the next episode, they have this girl who's apparently an orphan, and she's trying to get into the circus, and then...
She didn't run away to join the circus.
No, there's this line.
She tried out.
There's a line to the cyber circus where it's all robots doing all their circus stuff. And she's like, oh man, geez, I wish I could go, but I don't have any money. So she's begging people in line, please, can I have one crypto buck to get into?
This is Zuckerberg's vision of the future.
How many Doge coins does it take to get into the circus? And this lady doesn't give her the time of day, turns her back to her, drops her wallet, and then she's like, oh, I should give her back her wallet. She yells at her. The lady walks away. Oh, okay. Well, I shouldn't steal it, but maybe I'll just take enough money to get into the circus and I'll give it back to her. She pulls out the money. Then the lady's like, I see you. And she's like, calls the police and they come grab her. And then no one can tell that she's a girl because she dresses like a boy. And so everyone's calling her boy the whole episode.
That's what happens to Dragon Slayer. And also Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's a reoccurring trope, that's for sure. Up until one of the female cops at the very end is like, oh, it's a girl. And she's like, thanks for noticing, Capper.
Thanks for the harassment, cop.
But really, I think the people that are really interesting, like most police shows, are the criminals here. You got Brandon Big Boss Babel. Essentially, he's like Kingpin, but like, says, Kappa, see? We're going to be the leader of the criminal empire, you see? So he talks all the time. And he has an iron fist. Because, you know, we don't want to be too on the nose there. He also has Scratch, a pet weasel with metal paws and cybernetic armor. Kind of cool, but gets no play.
It's a more metal version of Beastmaster.
Yes, with Kodo and Pogo, right?
Yes.
Yeah. His number one in charge is Berserko. most of his henchmen are these huge, hulking motherfuckers who kind of look a little Robert Zadar-ish,
Nice.
but more muscly. This big hulking dude. Another thing Bart Sears said is that they had to change their basic molds at the company that were making them because it didn't want to look like G.I. Joes. They wanted like these huge V-shaped shoulders, hulking out of proportion people.
Then why didn't they hire Rob Liefeld?
I mean, literally, a lot of these people look like Rob Liefeld characters without the pockets.
Well, that was more of a Jim Lee thing anyway. So that's
Well,
fine.
no, the pouches and stuff. That's
Pouches,
Robbie.
sure, but I think Jim Lee was more. I mean, look at Cyclops in X-Men #1.
Dude, you need to go look at your Cable sketches.
That's fair.
Back from 1993, my friend.
And Shatterstar and all. Yeah, it's fair.
Every character he does. But Berserko was, he's kind of like Flea, but on meth. He talk like this all the time.
Wow.
Even though he was this like huge dude.
So he's like the annoying character in Fright Night.
Yes, a lot like that. The best friend? Is
Yes,
that
the
what you're
best
talking
friend
about?
guy. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
spiky hair.
imagine if the best friend took the super soldier serum. It's kind of like that.
Or became a vampire.
You know, potato, tomato. There's the female villain, Miss Demeanor, who's the champion bodybuilder.
Misdemeanor. She's just not that big a deal.
There's Turbo Two-Tone.
Tommy Two-Time?
He's a getaway driver, but he has this Fu Manchu mustache and these shades.
Oh.
Well, I mean, he looks more like who would drive a Harley, if anything. He's not like an Asian stereotype.
Oh, he's a type. Okay.
Yeah. But probably the best one was Dr. Bad Vibes.
Do not go to this doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Percival Percy Cranial, who's a mad scientist who I guess took off his skull and replaced it with a glass dome that shows his abnormally large brain.
That seems wise.
Yeah, and he's just making up crazy inventions like every 2 or 3 episodes.
But they don't work because he has a glass dome for a head. They just humor him.
I wish. That would be more of a fun character.
He just glues a bunch of action figures together and here you go. That's really nice. Thank you, Percy.
Maybe the final best one was Buttons McBoom Boom.
It's a 90s Marvel character. Does she look like Jubilee?
Oh, it's a dude. Constantine Saunders became Buttons McBoom Boom.
Wow. There's a lot going on there.
Oh, there's a lot. So, yeah, he's got like a pruny Greek face that's extra long. He wears a zoot suit, but he'll open up the buttons on a zoot suit, and he has machine guns implanted in his chest that pop out and will just shoot stuff.
Ah, yes. It's the oldest story.
Yeah, just like everybody.
Uh-huh.
So every episode would just be another villain trying to steal gold or rob banks or trains or whatever they needed for the particular mission. Oddly enough, there didn't seem to be much of a point to every episode. You know, like a lot of times you'd have in those 80s cartoons, oh, I should learn not to judge every book by its cover. Nope. It's just, we got the bad guys. Case closed.
We beat them mercilessly and didn't read them the rights. Case closed.
There's one where these robots that are meant to replace the cops, and so they start going around the city arresting, you have been found guilty of jaywalking, 3 years hard labor.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's like a literal sentence they handed out to this woman who stepped across the street. But one of the cops arrested, I think it was Misdemeanor, for stealing gold.
Okay. From the gold store.
The robot's like, you did not read her rights. Your procedure was faulty. She is innocent.
I wish that actually existed. The world would be a better place.
It would be a better place. But just like in our 2022, this 2022, all animated cops are bastards.
Mm-hmm. All animated cops you run into in the real world are dickheads. Except for that one in Last Action Hero.
The one that voiced by Danny DeVito?
Yeah, it looks like Bubsy, kind of.
Although I think he's trying to have sex with people he arrests in that movie.
That movie has all sorts of problems that we'll get into at some point, I'm sure.
There's tons. I'm also not a huge fan of that movie.
No, it sucks. I don't like that movie. I didn't like it when I saw it in the theater, and I don't like it now.
A lot of people love it. I don't really get it, but
I think because of nostalgia, because I remember when it came out, nobody liked it. It's like Jingle All the Way. Like, it's a terrible, terrible movie, but now everybody's like, at the store I work at, we sell a Turbo Man replica toy you can buy.
Woof.
Yeah, I know.
But they do that with all the movies that come out. It's like Prey came out, and everyone's like, well, I think you guys are hating on Predator 2 and how awesome it is. Or Predators, or...
That's not true at all.
I know. And it's like, just because a movie wasn't like then, maybe it's for a reason?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, I understand the argument to a certain extent. You know, Big Lebowski was not popular when it came out. You know, a lot of good movies were not popular when they happened. Even Citizen Kane was not popular when it happened, you know. But, like, you know, going back in retrospect, you're like, oh, yeah, okay. Evil Dead, same thing.
Yeah, there's tons of films like that.
Yeah, tons. But at the same time, there are movies that are still bad today. And just because you watched them when you were a kid, now you think they're awesome, or you have no taste, it doesn't make it a good movie.
Yeah, the keyboard edgelords need to get off. And just because a movie's been out for 30 years doesn't mean it's good for whatever reason you want it to.
Keyboard edgelords should be the name of our Emerson, Lake and Palmer cover band.
What lucky men we'd be then.
Oh, glory be.
Yeah, near the end of the 65 episode run, they started doing C.O.P.S for kids. Where they'd have little animated featurettes breaking down stuff for like DARE or National Crime Prevention or Highway Patrol. But essentially it came and went. The last time it was broadcast was on the USA Network back in 1995, back under its original title. There was also a 15-issue DC comic series based off both the toys in the show, which, from what I've heard, was better than the show.
And we're talking about the acronym C.O.P.S, right?
C.O.P.S.
That's right.
C.O.P.S.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Not Bad Boys, What You Gonna Do?
What's it going to come for you?
Oh, well, if you play your cards right.
Play your Yu-Gi-Oh cards right.
Yeah. So that is C.O.P.S. You can still find it. It's currently on Tubi for free if you'd like to check it out for yourself. Get a little taste of the future justice from the past. Double wise now.
Days of future past.
Yeah. The days of C.O.P.S past. It didn't quite hold up to my memory, but there is a mashup of the intro and the outro, because the intro is like, "Cops, it's crime fighting time." And then the outro would always be, "Cops, roll call." And then they just go through the names of the different cops, because that's a thing that you want.
Okay, yep.
But I think, Skip, we've solved another case of the missing and not lauded at all 80s police adventure cartoon from 1988.
Dun dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun.
Hey, I'm Ice Cube. We got you for rape.
Wow. Also, Car Shield. He does Car Shield commercials now.
Oh, he does Car Shield. I didn't know
No,
that.
the best part is that in the commercial, he's like looking at a car and he's got rubber gloves on like it's a crime scene. And then he takes them off and hands them to some schmuck who, you know, is supposedly like a tech or whatever. But they never address that. They just start talking about Car Shield. Like, wait, hold on. Do you think he's really a cop? Like,
He's been doing it long enough.
oh, man, he's been there forever. He's a smart
yeah.
man.
I wish that every time he got into his car to drive to a crime scene, you know, you just see him in the car, he turns it on, you get 3 seconds of him driving off. The radio would just be playing Cop Killer. That would be great.
That would be great. Or I was watching a movie the other day, and Body Count was on the soundtrack.
Was it Johnny Mnemonic?
Maybe it was a TV show. Yeah, I think it was on Netflix.
I'm going to find out. All right, so Body Count's soundtrack credits. You ready for this?
Please.
All right. Universal Soldier from 1992. An episode of Dead at 21.
Okay.
Backyard Wrestling 2, There Goes the Neighborhood video game. I Love the 90s Part 2. An episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Gears of War 3 video game.
Really?
What Now? The 99 Problems rock mix? Okay.
What?
2 episodes of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
What?
And probably what you might have heard of, Day Shift, the most recent.
It was
Day Shift.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's bright, but not as ambitious.
I'd say it's better than Bright. I'd rather watch Day Shift again than Bright.
I agree with you. It's very problematic in a lot of ways.
So many ways.
But so is Max Landis, so...
Yeah. At least Day Shift, it's not taking itself seriously. It's an in and out.
It's in and out with Kevin Kline, yeah. Well, I do remember Cops. I remember that coming out. I never watched it. But there was, you know what, that was a weird time because in that time period, there was a bunch of parallel shows that were going on. Obviously, you had RoboCop, but then there was also a few years later in the 90s, there was a show called Man and Machine, which was where a grizzled, I break the rules type detective was paired with an android. It was the same actress who played in the Witchblade TV show, which, by the way, we can't forget Witchblade was a TV show.
Yancey Butler.
Yancey Butler.
You never seem to remember her name.
Hey, you're right. Wait, when have we ever talked about Yancey Butler?
Oh, she's come up before.
Really?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, we talked about the Witchblade show before.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. Oh, God, you're rubbing off on me, man. I don't remember
Kristen
shit.
Davis from Sex and the City was on an episode.
Oh, nice.
Beth Toussaint.
But there were a bunch of failed pilots and one-off made-for-TV movies or whatever that were probably just failed pilots that tackled this idea that the cop buddy thing, but in the future, infusing future tech in the concept.
Yeah, it's or other sci-fi concept like Alien Nation, where it's cops with aliens, or cops with dinosaurs, or
cowboys with aliens, or Well, yeah, J.J. Abrams basically remade Man and Machine a few years ago with Carl Urban.
Yeah, you know what? I liked the show. I thought it wasn't bad.
I never watched it.
It was okay. It was not a bad show.
Which is saying something.
I think he was just executive producer.
Well, yeah, he sets the whole thing up, yeah, but he greenlights all those type of genre stuff, Anyway.
I sent you a link. Click on that. You don't see it?
Hold on.
I don't see it.
I gotta open the... Okay, there we go. Yes, strain harder. That'll make me see it faster. Beth Toussaint?
Beth Toussaint, yeah.
Yeah, she played Ishara Yar.
Yeah. This picture there. Oof, loving what I'm seeing.
She's a poor man's Linda Hamilton.
Yes, but, Terminator 1, Linda Hamilton.
Yes. Yeah, big hair Linda Hamilton.
Yeah. No, they could be sisters easily.
Yeah, they looked very, very similar, which is funny because in Star Trek she played the sister of Denise Crosby.
Yeah. Which is another poor man's Linda Hamilton.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of.
Okay, completely unrelated to this. Let me just lay this on you. All right. 6 people renting a cabin in the woods of Utah run afoul of a legendary Viking warrior who dons the claws and mouth of a bear with no help in sight.
What?
That is 1987's Berserker.
Can I see that right now? I'd like to watch the movie right now, please.
I will find out while you continue on. I will see if we can see Berserker.
Beth Toussaint was...
Berserker's nowhere. It is not streaming anywhere.
It may not exist. It may be a fever dream.
I'm going to find this film.
Oh, please do. I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
It's probably on YouTube. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's all on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing.
All right, I'm going to pee real quick, and then we'll go continue on to the second half.
Ooh, the second half of the show. Coming right up, folks. All right, while Skip's gone, what should I talk about? I think I'm going to just talk about some episodes. The Case of the Stuck-Up Blimp. Or The Case of the Crime Circus. The Case of the Baffling Bugman. The Case of Berserko's Big Surprise. He sat on it, folks. The Case of the Partner in Crime. The Case of the Baby Bad Guy, which is where these little people... They get into this city orphanage and they take it over as their hideout. And then they're using all of the orphans as hostages.
You're poisoning their minds, Jake.
The Case of the Crook with 1,000 Faces. The case of the sinister spa.
It's like Death Spa.
Exactly. The case of the cool caveman. Brian befriends a prehistoric caveman who was frozen in ice since the Ice Age.
Yeah, it's Encino Man, right.
Yeah. The case of the wayward whiz kid.
Quiz Kid Donnie Smith. Anyway,
thanks for listening, everybody.
yeah, we're crazy, and we go down rabbit holes and tangents because,
Yep. Cyborg rabbit holes.
yeah, we do appreciate you tuning in for that. And there are a lot of obscure cartoons out there that you don't know. We don't just focus on the 80s, but that is the era in which we were children watching cartoons. So
I would say that was also the era where you had the kind of the craziest stuff going on.
that's true, even more so than the 90s. And I know kids who grew up or were born in the 90s want to argue with that, I'm sure. But no, trust me, it was the 80s. It was 100% the 80s. Because then you had that crazy boom of cartoons that were tie-ins to toys and things. So you got an insane plethora of... You know what? And it was also the first time that those kind of things were geared toward children as a marketable demographic, as a consumer base. That was very rare. I mean, you had some, and you had erector sets, and you had, like that kind of thing. But until the 80s, which was dominated by cross-media marketing to children, it was a crazy, crazy decade. Ronald Reagan was there. He was a piece of
Fact.
That's that. He's just a villain. That's just how it is. Yeah, we will not just cover the 80s, but that was a crazy time. What a time to be alive.
It's a wild and crazy time.
So thank you guys for listening.
If you'd like to share, subscribe, like us on your podcast of choice, perhaps even give us a 5-cop review.
Well, not their podcast of choice, their podcast player or podcatcher.
Catcher.
The podcast of choice we want to be this podcast.
Yeah, this is your podcast of choice. You've chosen. There's no turning back now. You've made it to the end. Mm-hmm. It's only like another minute left, so just hold on.
It's a podcast of choice, which is my favorite Fat Boy Slim remix.
Is Christopher Walken dancing that one too?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So
he also killed Natalie Wood. So anyway, what?
It's not true. Don't listen to him. He's lying. Leave a review if you don't mind. We'd super appreciate it. Helps us get seen and
it's true.
Listened and whatnot.
Listen to and whatnots and what have yous.
Yes, the have yous and what things. Anyway, Skip, take us out.
Well, in addition to that, please remember to support your local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, we would like to say, Godspeed, fair wizards.
They say in the episode, crime's a-wastin', like time's a-wastin'.
That doesn't make... Well, do the criminals say that, or the
yes,
cops
the criminals say that.
Because if the cops said that, I'd be very confused.
No, the cops say it's crime fighting time.
It's Morbin time.
Also,
Let's
I'm going to
stop recording.
Stop.